You know autumn when you start making jam from pears and apples, and that goes really well on a slice of sourdough sandwich bread, which I'll show you soon how to make in one of the videos. Yummy. But let's go and have a look how our sourdough started doing since we fed it yesterday. I don't see that much of activity, and it looks quite good. It has quite a few bubbles. It looks quite airy, but not too airy. And let's have a look at the volume. So it has gone up in the volume since yesterday, but I wouldn't say it has been super active. What we're going to do next, we're going to do a flow test, and that big clump of flour just went straight to the bottom of the glass with water. But the other bit of a sourdough starter has floated, and when you do sourdough starter flow test, some parts of sourdough starter could sink and some could float. I think sometimes it depends how much bubbles in that piece of sourdough starter grabbed actually has. But as long as one of the bits is floating, I would say that's good enough for us to go ahead and bake sourdough. So I'm quite pleased with it, and you might think it's weird I'm using chopstick, but I've just put a dishwasher on and I didn't have any clean spoons or forks. So that's done, and let's go ahead and start baking our bread with pumpkin seeds today. I'm gonna go ahead and grab a large mixing bowl, kitchen scales. I'm gonna add ingredients onto my sourdough. I'm gonna start by adding sourdough starter, which I've had left about 120 grams. And then I'm gonna add about 290 grams of water, 10 grams of salt, and then I'm gonna mix it really well with my Danish hook. The next ingredient I'm gonna add is about 80 grams of pumpkin seeds. Now you can add much less than that. Anything between 40 to 50 grams is perfectly fine. I like to add seeds early on with wet ingredients because I feel like they incorporate better into a dough. Then I'm gonna add about 20 grams of honey, but you can use sugar as well, or not to add anything at all. Then I'm gonna add 200 grams of wholemeal flour and 300 grams of strong white bread flour. Wholemeal flour is healthier because it has all the little bits left, and the white bread flour is better for protein and the gluten development. Basically, it's better for shaping. I'm going to incorporate the whole dry flour in a bowl, and to make sure it's all mixed really well, then I'm going to cover the bowl with my tea towel and leave it to rest for about half an hour. Then we're going to come back to our dough and we're going to start doing 3 sets of stretch and fold. While our dough is resting, I'm gonna go ahead and feed the remaining sourdough starter. So I've got barely anything left, so I need to feed it if I wanna start baking sourdough bread again. So I'm gonna add a couple of spoons of white bread flour and my secret ingredient, which is a tiny bit of Incan flour. I would say maybe a teaspoon or 2. I mix it really well and add some filtered cold water. Now I don't measure my ingredients, it works really well for me, and I always focus on a consistency, and the consistency we are looking for in our sourdough starter is a thick pancake batter. After half an hour our dough has rested, and now we're going to do a first set of stretch and fold. So stretch and fold is kind of a technique that we can use to help dough to develop a shape and gluten and a strength with elasticity in it without kneading, because even before I started making sourdough breads, kneading was just, it's really hard. So the way we do stretch and fold, we lift the dough from the sides up in the air and fold it back into this top of the center towards ourselves. And we keep doing that all around the dough, kind of twisting and turning the bowl around it. So the first stretch and folds, it doesn't almost feel like it does anything at all. But after the dough will rest for half an hour, you will see a difference in the dough, I promise you. So we're going to cover that up with a towel or cling film and leave it to rest for another half an hour. Okay, we're going to go ahead and do a second set of stretch and folds. So this time the dough is responding so much easier to these stretches. It's more elastic. It's a little bit easier to shape. So I've done some stretches and folds. I'm doing some cold folds where you lift the dough in the air, just to let the dough stretch a little bit, especially when it's high hydration dough. I'm gonna try to shape the dough back in a ball, and then I'm gonna cover it and let it rest half an hour before we're gonna go ahead and do our third and last set of these stretches. Now half an hour rest is done and we're gonna do our last set. So if you notice, my dough is much easier to lift it up. Once I'm done this set, I'm gonna leave the dough to rest overnight in the fridge and I will update you tomorrow.